How's everybody doing today? How's everybody doing today? How's everybody doing today? How's everybody doing today? Okay. I'm going elsewhere and it was echoing. I'm going elsewhere and it was echoing. Echo from now. Elsewhere it was echoing. Elsewhere it was echoing. Elsewhere it was echoing. Let's try this again. Okay, good. No echo. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the 64th. Why is it not? Okay, hang on. It's not that one person. There we go. Okay. All right, how's everybody doing again? And how did you guys get into my living room one more time? Every month, you guys seem to find my living room. I don't understand this. We are now on our 64th edition of the Quarantine Comedy. We started at the beginning of the quarantine. We've been doing about twice a month for most of that time, and we're still going as long as we have comics willing to do the virtual and audience members who want to watch. We will continue to do this. Appreciate you coming. We do this. It's a free show. If you're having a good time, we'd love you to follow us on Button Down Comedy on Instagram, Facebook, any of the comics. During the show, the comics will put their social information in the chat, and if you like them, want to follow them, please do that. Also, I've set up two means to donate. If we got comics that basically are still trying to get back to normal. Pandemic was tough on comedy because we couldn't really go anywhere, and we're just kind of getting back to normal finally. But this is, for a lot of these comics, this is how they make their money. So if you have a good time tonight, if you get some laughs, and you want to show these comics how much you enjoyed that, we do set up two options for donation. You have paypal.me/comedy, and then Cash App $ Button Down Comedy. So we got all the way. Let's get to some fun things. I noticed that all these people have a problem with Merry Christmas, but nobody seems to have a problem with Happy Turkey Day. Really? You think the turkey? I don't think so. I mean, to be honest with you, have you ever looked at a turkey? Do they ever look happy? I mean, the president pardoned two turkeys. They didn't even look happy. We kill 45 million turkeys on Thanksgiving every single year. We are serial killers. I mean, this would be like Jeffrey Dahmer saying Happy Steve Day. It just is wrong. I was reading, researchers have found that there are over 10,000 nerve endings in the clitoris. 10,000 nerve endings. 10,000! We can't seem to find any. But we do find that last nerve. I was also reading that when you go down on a woman, the taste is very dependent on what she eats. So I stopped going down on my girlfriend ever since she started eating my ass. I got a check from a kitchen's settlement. I got a check from a kitchen's settlement. I got a check from a kitchen's settlement. Is that the echo gone now?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I I got a class action check for 12 cents. I mean, it cost them more to print the check. Cost them more to mail the check. It cost me $4 to cash the check. Friend of mine's doing pretty well. You know, I wipe my ass with a dollar bill, which wouldn't have been a big deal except they gave me $20 for gas. I took a workshop early on in my comedy career, and they said that when you tell a joke, you need to tell it like the audience's ends up hearing that joke. What that means, laugh or I will kill you. I also learned early on that when you get an idea for a joke, you gotta write it down because otherwise it just disappears. So the other night, I woke up, middle of the night, I woke up and I had the funniest joke I'd ever thought of. And I quickly grabbed my phone and made some notes, put the phone down, went back to sleep. Woke up and figured I would work on this joke. I mean, it was hilarious. Opened my phone up. It said toast. No buttered toast, no champagne toast. Just wish I could remember that damn joke. Memory is, as you get older, you have those days. I put my sock. I spent the next 5 minutes looking for my socks.
Guilty.
I was on the phone to a friend of mine. Told him I couldn't find my phone. First, he was giving me ideas where it might be. How many people have the 23andMe? Anybody done the 23andMe? Round of applause. I was very disappointed. I mean, I thought it was slang for a gangbang. Woman at the bar told me,
No, I'm watching a show.
dick. I've never been so disappointed to have a nice dick in my life. You know, someone who sews is called
No.
someone who knits is called a knit. Who does crack is called a comedian. I tell you, the Internet of Things is getting out of hand. My girlfriend got a wireless bra. Now she says it's free. You ever see those fish out of water movies? Some guy in a foreign country and for some odd reason ends up in a car chase. Hops in this fancy sports car, foreign car, it's a stick shift, everything's reversed, but somehow he knows how to drive it. I mean, talk about unrealistic. I mean, have you ever tried to masturbate with the wrong hand? It just doesn't work. It just doesn't. Got stopped by a police officer. He said, "Do you know why I stopped you?" I'm like, "What? You don't know?" If I guess, do I get off? I mean, that is a stupid question. I mean, that's like saying, "Do you know why I murdered you?" Hey, I'm talking to you. Like my girlfriend told me she wants a fairy tale relationship. Wasn't quite sure what she meant till I came home and found 7 short guys in the bedroom. All right, that is my time. Let's move on to our first real comedian of the evening. Met him doing Zoom comedy all during the pandemic. Well, we were doing a lot of Zoom comedy back then. But TL has been on our quarantine comedy. I think, is this your 3rd time?
Yeah.
It's the 3rd time, yeah. Always good fun. Always makes me laugh. So please, let's give it up for TL Devaney.
Hey, thanks, George. Thanks everyone for being here. So we've hit that time of year, the holiday time of the year. The older you get, it seems to just roll from Halloween into Thanksgiving into Christmas. And I pretty much gave up celebrating any of those holidays years ago because I found you can get away with that. Uh, if once you hit middle age and have no children that your parents are interested in, they don't really give a shit if you come home or not. So it just makes it easier on everybody, but the thing of it is also I was never taught to really celebrate holidays, right? Uh, I grew up in Central Washington, pretty poor. And that's not like Western Washington. I live in Seattle now, and that's when people think of Washington, they tend to think of Seattle as this like beautiful, progressive place. And I grew up out in the middle of the desert in a trailer with a bunch of people from Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Mexico. Uh, and My parents, we weren't allowed to celebrate Halloween when we were kids. My mom was that lady that gave out Christian flyers instead of candy when the kids came to the door. I'm surprised our house never got burnt down when I was a kid. I suppose the fact that it was a trailer made that less of a possibility, as those things don't really go up that good. But what I did get was every November 1st of my childhood, some kid coming up to me at school and being like, "Hey man, maybe if you weren't so queer, your mom wouldn't have to pass out Bibles instead of candy on Halloween." Oh yeah? Well, maybe if you weren't so queer, my mom wouldn't have to give you a Bible on Halloween. Did you ever think of that, pal? But one of the last years I went to my parents' house for Christmas. You have to go over a mountain pass from Seattle to get over there, and it's a long, snowy, arduous drive. And I'm like one of those guys that, like, when we get in the car to go somewhere, we ain't stop until we get there, right? We just go. And so by the time I get there, I really got to pee. And so I ran up to my parents' door and opened it wide up. And the first thing I was met with was a 2-pound Yorkie in a velvet Christmas dress. Passed that by, ran on through to the bathroom, got in there, looked in the bathtub, and the holiday turkey was in the bathtub. I'm not sure, if that was more of a danger to the eaters of the turkey or the bathers in the house. I'm just pretty sure someone came away from that dinner with salmonella of the foot. That's all I'm saying about that. We thought it was my Aunt Janice, the 6 feet under jokes just never died out in our family. But we grew up, our next door neighbor was this guy named Grady from Arkansas, old guy. And he used to stand along the fence with a chaw on one side of his mouth, dried piece of grass hanging out the other, drinking sun tea and whiskey out of a mason jar. And he had 2 sons. And I swear to God, not making this up, the kids' names were Junior and Bubba. They had this old Nova that was like 7 shades of primer with no rear bumper, but for some reason a gun rack in the back, tearing out of the driveway. Leonard Skinner, screaming out the windows. Never sure if the car was backfiring or if they're just shooting at something. Tearing around the trailer court like the Dukes of Haphazard. We were next door going to church 3 times a week. That wasn't fun. But my parents are just weirdos, because then the next thing I found out when I was home for the holidays is that you were no longer allowed to listen to the TV out loud in their house. They got 2 pairs of Bluetooth headphones by every TV. And if you want to watch TV, you got to put the headphones on, whatever. The real problem is that my mom wants to watch TV with you and then talk to you. So it's just like, what? The whole time. I mean, it just seemed like my entire childhood, there was never any celebration of a holiday. It was just some kind of weird ass ordeal that might have been a sitcom, unless it was a little bit funnier. You just need a little bit more humor. A little less sadness, a little more humor would have brought that around. But I over the course of the pandemic, like a lot of people, I've gained some weight, trying to address that. My doctor's always yelling at me about not getting enough exercise. So I had to devise a special workout program for myself, because I can't do any of the regular stuff. But what I did, because I work from home, and so I got one of those under desk bikes. Have you guys seen those things? The pedals you put under the bike. And so what I do is that I'll ride the under desk bike while I smoke a joint and listen to Pat Benatar. Now, what do you call the workout where you pedal your under desk bike, smoke a joint, and listen to Pat Benatar? You call that sit me with your desk pot. So I live in this neighborhood of Seattle that's like mid gentrification. Like we got a low rent strip club across the street, right across from some huge $1 million townhomes and condos that they constructed in recent years. But right around the corner, it's more of like an upper middle class neighborhood. So that's where I walk my dogs, because we live in a shitty little apartment. I don't want them to know that they're growing up disadvantaged. But my dogs are very, it's gotten hard being in the city with my dogs, because there's just been increased foot traffic with all these new homes they built and everything, and people are shitheads and stupid about not walking right into the perimeter of your leash while you're trying to walk a reactive dog. But we have made a couple friends. There's an old guy that lives around that way that one day we were coming around and he just started speaking Spanish to my dogs. And my one dog I got from Mexico, and so she went running right over there, and he could get her to do a bunch of shit that I could never get her to do in English. And so he introduced himself to us. His name's Roberto, and he had this big fat orange cat sitting on his porch. And he told me the name of it in Spanish, but I didn't quite catch it. And I said something mumbled and garbled back to him. And he just pointed at the cat and said, Gato. Okay, so now the cat's name's Gato. So we would run into Roberto every now and again. He'd talk to the dogs in Spanish, make them do nice tricks. And he introduced me to his wife one time. Again, didn't catch the name. So I just said, nice to meet you, Mrs. Roberto. Great. So now they're Mr. and Mrs. Roberto, and that really cracked Roberto up, my inability to catch these names in Spanish. But one night I was in my little teeny shitty apartment here around the corner, and I heard this big cat fight break out on the roof of my apartment. And I didn't get up in time to see what was happening. I just looked outside in time to see Gato running away from the scene of the crime. And so the next day I see Roberto, and I'm like, oh, hey, Gato's pretty fierce. He got into a big cat fight, I think on the roof of my apartment building last night. And he's like, there must be a new male cat in the neighborhood. I'm like, male? Was it like, it's like some kind of dominance thing or something? He's like, no, he likes to try to mate with the males. So I had to take a second and think about that. Finally I said, hey, wait a second. Did you just say you have a homo orange gato, Mr. Roberto? Homo. I got this friend that lives a couple doors down from me. We're actually really old friends, and when he and his wife moved back to Seattle from Indiana, I just happened to know that somebody was moving out of the place a couple doors down, and they moved in there quite a few years ago now. But we've just known each other so long, we basically installed a drive-through window into our friendship, because we got those big windows at the front of the apartment, and he just sits behind that big window working from home too on his computer. So I'll walk down there, he slides open that window, and we just conduct our friendship transaction. Then I'm back on my way. But one day he just out of nowhere said to me that he does not like Tom Petty. And it made me feel a little queasy, like I was free falling or having some kind of a breakdown. I said, listen here, buddy. You don't know how it feels. You better stop dragging my heart around, pal. No, you don't come around here, buddy. I won't back down. One thing I need to tell you guys, or else you're not gonna understand at all where this goes from here, is that I am transgender. I mean, imagine this growing up as a 12-year-old girl in the scenario, the redneck scenario I recounted for you earlier. It just was no good. But the reason why I have to tell you that is that I got to tell you the story about how you all don't realize it, but being a transgender person actually requires like a lot of paperwork. Like you got to go get your driver's license changed and to court to change your name and do all this stuff. And so you do all that just so that when you're out in the world, you don't got to be confronted with a name that seems wrong for the person that they're looking at, you know? So, but what you realize after a while is that not all of that stuff trickles down everywhere from the top where you corrected it, right? So what happened to me was I went to buy a car, and you know how when you go to buy a car, they pretty much pull your entire permanent record. So I'm sitting in their office waiting for the used car salesman Randy to come back in there and tell me the verdict. And so he comes in with that big stack of papers and he's like, well, you know, everything looks pretty good, but some of this stuff has the right information, but it has the first name Teresa. What is that, your ex-wife or something? So not wanting to create any more of an uncomfortable moment for everybody, I just was like, yeah, and went on with my business. So now I'm my own wife, and we are divorced. Hey, thanks, you guys. I'm TL Devaney. Back to George.
Let's keep it going for TL. Yeah, TL. I think your joke is just more my age group and Art's age group. All those Tom Petty songs. All the millennials just don't understand, you know.
I think they know. I think everybody has that greatest hits record in their house.
I'm with you.
Our next leader I also met doing Zoom comedy, and he has been on the show a few times as well. He comes to us from Chicago, and from what I've been hearing from him, he's been working way too hard and drinking way too little. All right, so please, let's put it on. Big Michael Cooper.
Hey, thanks, y'all. I'm doing good. I hope y'all are doing good. Just before we get going here, for those of y'all that maybe don't know me, I'm aware that when I talk, I sound like the bad guy in all the historically accurate movies. That's actually a hereditary condition. It comes from being descended from the bad guy in all the historically accurate movies. I feel like I don't know what other things you people just inherit. I don't know. You don't see somebody with like a club foot and go, did your dad have a club foot? Yeah. Oh, you must be a racist. And like fair, but Jesus. A lot of people ask me, you know, about like what it was like growing up in a conservative Christian environment. Michael, what was the hardest part about growing up in that kind of an environment? Because people don't have boundaries and want to know what the hardest thing about my childhood was within 5 minutes of meeting me. And I'll tell you what the hardest thing about being raised in that environment is, and it impacts me to this day. It's the number of people I grew up with who believe in God, but not my comedy career. You can show up at church at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning every week. You can't click a Zoom link for me at 7 o'clock at night. You can stare at the eastern sky waiting for a somehow white Jesus who somehow speaks English to break it apart as he comes to rapture all of his children from the earth. But you can't watch a 5-minute YouTube clip. It reminds me of the verse, no one comes to the comedy shows but by me. I'm 35 years old and I'm polyamorous. For those of you who don't know what polyamorous means, it's one capable of sustaining multiple amorous, romantic, sexual connections with multiple partners simultaneously, all of whom are free to do the same, so long as all the relationships are healthy, open, honest, and safe. See also tired. I am exhausted. I got nothing left in the gas tank. It does come with one advantage, which is as a polyamorous person, you know, jealousy doesn't really get too into the mix there. So it does come with this great advantage of, if I see a woman or I meet a woman and I think she's very pretty, instead of telling the other men in my life that I think this woman is pretty, I can tell my girlfriend I think this woman's pretty. And there is a vast difference in response. Because if you're a dude and you've ever told a male friend, if you've ever told a guy friend that a woman's pretty, their response is always way over the top. Hey, did you meet that woman, Stacy? I thought she was really cool, the one who had the PhD in Victorian era literature. Yeah, she's hot. No, I just meant she was really bright. I'd really like to pick her brain about queer theory vis-a-vis Victorian era literature. Yeah, man, I want to fucking tag that shit. Did you tag that shit? No, we're just meeting for coffee. I wonder if she does suicide anal. Like, I don't know what that means, and I'm gonna hang up this phone so that I continue not knowing what that means. If it does turn out that she's interested, I'll inquire and she'll give me the Oxford English Dictionary definition with her degree in Victorian era literature. We did just have an election. We had a midterm election. Everybody's still excited about that or whatever. People get bent out of shape about the elections themselves, and then they forget about like all the policies. But I'm not going to sit here and drone on about Republicans or Democrats. And that's because as a communist, I think the main reason most Americans hate communism is for the same reason that I hate NFTs. I don't know what they are, but I do know I don't like the person that's explaining them to me. There is one political position that I'm going to promote tonight that is not necessarily a communist position. It's a bit of a nuanced position. It's not radical. It's not extreme. I think it's right in the middle, and that is, it's still controversial. So I'm actually pro-crime. I am, however, anti-petty crime. A lot of people get mad about either one or the other. They want you to either be against all the crimes or just the petty or just the big crimes. Let the petty crimes go. I disagree. I'll give you a concrete example as to why. A few months back, I had a bicycle and it got stolen. Okay? Now that was very difficult for me because I like having a bicycle. I use it to exercise, etc. Used to use it to make a living. We'll cover that later. But maybe this person needed it more than me. Maybe they needed to sell it to get food or important immediate resources. Maybe they needed reliable transportation to and from a place of employment. Maybe they needed cocaine. I don't care what it is, so long as they got it. But then a few weeks later, I bought another bike. And then someone stole the back wheel from that bike. And that's a petty crime. I'm against that crime. because now I don't know what the fuck to do with that bike. Do I try to sell off the rest of it? Do I try to locate the other wheel? Was this like a fun, like YouTube joke prank where they're going to film themselves taking it and then film me standing next to it and then film me searching for it? Are there hidden clues nearby that I'm going to go on some sort of scavenger hunt? Are they then going to take out individual spokes from the bike tire and then place them in different places? And then I have to get all of those and put it all back together. I don't know what's going to happen. Also, why are you doing whole crime risk for 1/4 crime pay? Explain that to me. Like, you're not going to look sketch as fuck walking into the pawn shop with just the back tire? But Michael, the back tire was all they could get because the rest of the bike was locked up properly and more difficult. It was a crime of opportunity. Yeah, well, I remember when criminals did real work. I'm just saying, back when I was drinking, if I needed money for booze, I would have gotten the whole bike. No one wants to work anymore. All I'm saying. Also, that bike was parked next to my car. Just take the fucking car. It's worth significantly more. I haven't paid on that car in 4 months. Either you're going to get that car or Wells Fargo is going to get that car. And I like you a lot more than Wells Fargo because you're a street criminal, never created a worldwide fucking recession. When I had this horrible job, first job I ever had to do it on a bike. So kind of glad the bike's gone, you know? I was delivering pizza on a bicycle, mostly to college students. And I don't know if y'all know this about 19-year-olds whose parents have 40 grand a year to send their kid to the college to study music theory. Well, when they see a 32-year-old dude pulling up on a bicycle at 2 o'clock in the morning to deliver their pizza, they can be a little disrespectful. But that's okay. Y'all know what I would do? I would just ask them what they were studying. Then no matter what, I told them I studied the same thing. You haven't lived till you watched a 19-year-old ruin their life because you told one lie. What's that? Biomechanical engineering? Well, shit fire, son. Me too. Is it weird that I called my customer son? Maybe a little. But if my parents taught me one thing, it's if you're going to fuck up someone's life, you owe it to them to call them son first. Okay, confession. There's a second political belief. And this one might be a little bit more controversial. And when I tell people this, they always think I'm kidding. I'm not. I'm very serious about this. I'm the type of poor that gets upset when I see other working class people fuck a rich person. Who is looking at Jeff Bezos and thinking, yeah, I bet that guy's a giving lover? Why should they get to come and retire at a reasonable age? You're not going to get the fruits of my excess labor and my best flavor. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to happen. They're also selfish lovers. And this is just a historical fact, okay? Facts don't care about your feelings. It's a historical fact. Last rich person to give head was Marie Antoinette during the French Revolution. I do have a decent job now, so I get to make great financial choices. Like I recently had an acoustic guitar financed. Didn't even know you could do that. Turns out the key is if you're trying to do it and you're having trouble, what they actually need is your manager's social security number and name, and then you do it that way. I told my friend about it, and she was like, "God, just what the world needs. One more white guy with an acoustic guitar." But let's be honest here. You're talking to somebody who sounds like a character who was left on the cutting room floor of King of the Hill in season 2 because they reminded people of Mississippi burning too much. On the list of shit white men have done in this country, why is that the stereotype I'm supposed to be afraid of fulfilling? I get that the Dave Matthews Band covers are pretty miserable. But so is Jim Crow. I'm just saying. Just saying. If you see a white guy, okay, and he's covering a song, yeah, it's bad. But he took time to learn that song, which means he took time. And that's progress, because you don't believe me? Go back in time, give any white male historical figure an acoustic guitar, come back to now, tell me shit isn't a little bit better. Christopher Columbus would have written a song called "Italy's the Best and I'm Never Gonna Leave." Definitely not gonna do genocide. Not very catchy, but also not a genocide. Children in school would be learning limericks like, "In 1492, Columbus failed at the blues." The whole history of chattel slavery would have just been a white guy being annoying while a black guy was trying to play an instrument. "How'd you do that? Teach me how." "Oh, you got to practice, learn." "No, just show me." That's what the Civil War would have been. The Civil War would have been about the minor pentatonic versus the major pentatonic scale. That's what would have gone on. White guys love our acoustic guitars. Oh, don't fuck rich people. No Medicare for all, no orgasms for y'all. Simple rules. You're not going to raise minimum wage, you can get minimally laid. I don't know how much time I have left. I don't mean in the set. I know that's winding down. What I mean is I have an anger management problem and I don't take very good care of myself. All right, well, I think it's time I log off and listen to Freebird while I cut myself for a little bit. Thanks so much. Thanks, Geo, for having me on.
Give it up for Michael Cooper. Michael, I think the phrase would have been, when you see only one set of footprints in the sand, that was when I didn't come to your comedy show.
Nice.
Yeah. I love you don't fuck the rich bit. That's one of my favorite bits.
I fear our audience was moneyed.
Well, it might be the case. You never know. But you know what? If they were, then they don't get to come. They had to go. All righty. Well, our next comedian, I actually have known for a while in person. Met him when I first started doing comedy about 5 years ago in Asheville. He is one of my personal favorites. I love his stuff. I know way too much of his stuff by heart, and I still laugh at it. So it says a lot about it. So please, big round of applause, and let's give it up for Art Sturtevant.
Howdy, folks. So, round of applause if you can hear me. Cool. I'll take it. So, I'm Art Sturtevant. Actually, my name isn't really Art Sturtevant. That's a fake name I use because I'm in love with this mix of shame and joy and laughter and public humiliation that is stand-up comedy. And I don't want to bring down dishonor on my real name, which is Adolf Mussolini Stalin Carlson. I am. I was watching porn and I ran across the term interracial gangbang. And I was horrified by the sound, the meaning of those words are so full of stereotype and racism, you know, but the sound of those words, on the other hand, the meter of them, kind of fun and boisterous. And they fit perfectly with chitty chitty bang bang. Oh, my interracial gangbang, I love you. So you think the moneyed people are on board with that? Gang bang, interracial gang bang. Walked into a comedy show within the last couple of years, and there were 7 dogs in this bar in the audience. And I was like, what the hell? You know, people bring their dogs everywhere now. You know, what's the deal? And then I stopped and thought about it, and I thought, you know what? Dogs in a bar makes all the sense in the world, because who's going to appreciate that drunk sincerity more than a dog? You know, it's going to be like, hey boy, who's a good boy? And the dog's like, I'm like, I mean it, man. No, I mean it. Who's a good boy? No, don't give me that shit. It's you and me here. You are the most incredible boy ever. And now the dog's like, finally, somebody gets me. And you're like, dude, do you want to go outside? And the dog's like, ah. Do you want to go get in the car? And the dog says, maybe not the car. I did a lot of working out during the pandemic. Had some time off and worked out in my basement. And I did a lot of I've got a heavy bag, so I was doing boxing videos and punching a heavy bag. I was doing yoga. I was using yoga videos. And I got to tell you, the boxing videos and the yoga videos, completely different vibe. The boxing videos are like, oh my God, 15 more seconds. You can do it. Don't you dare give up. I will kill you. And the yoga videos are like, I need you to move a little bit more to the left. And at this point, you can stay there if you want, and it's okay. Or only if you feel moved to, you can move a little bit more, but don't do anything that hurts. And I feel like if the boxing video is where I'm going to be consensually abused, then the yoga video is my aftercare. I'm like, tell me I'm pretty, yoga with Adrian. Tell me you love me. Now I just have to take up Tai Chi because, you know, foreplay is important. Let's see. I was bicycling recently, and a truck passes by, and the driver goes, "Get the fuck off the road, you fat ass." And I'm going to tell you the real version of what happened, but I'm also going to tell you the fantasy, my fantasy version. So the real version, you know, I wave him over and the truck stops for a minute and then it drives away like nothing happened. That's it. That's the whole story. The fantasy version, by the way, on the other hand, I wave him over and he stops and he comes over and we are just throwing, we're like, and you know, he goes down really fast because it's my fantasy version, you know, so of course I'm going to win. And then I put him in an arm bar and I'm like, say you'll never yell at a bicyclist again. He's like, oh my God, I'll never yell at a bicyclist again. Say it again. I will never yell at a bicyclist. And then I'm like, now say it like Grover. And he's like, what? I don't understand what that means. Say it like Grover or I'll break your arm. Okay. I promise never to. No, that's Grover Cleveland. Say it like Grover from Sesame Street. Oh, okay. I, furry, lovable Grover, will never yell at a bicyclist again. Ah! That's my fantasy version. That's my sexual fantasy version. I feel very close to all of you right now. Let's see, what's the thing we're going to do next? So Dollywood, theme park or 160-acre Cracker Barrel? I bought one of those new cooling gel mattresses, and then I bought the cooling mattress pad they recommended, and then I set the air conditioner before bedtime. I woke up 300 years later in a dystopian future. I think waffle houses should all be made out of actual waffles, and each one should contain a witch who cooks and eats drunk rednecks who wander into the forest. Y'all want to hear a really stupid imitation?
Of course.
Okay, here comes a very stupid imitation. This is the old Lionel Richie song, All Night Long. I'm sorry, the old Lionel Richie song, All Night Long, if the narrator was a grouchy old man. All night long, everyone you meet, they're jamming in the street, all night long. Passed by a sign on the road tonight that said, over the road drivers wanted. Now I want to know what the hell's been going on underneath our roads. My wife bought me some Converse All-Star. She bought me Chucks because she supports my dream of being a professional basketball player in 1952. So now all I need is a pair of those really short shorts and a flux capacitor. It'll be like, Marty, we have to get you back to 1953 when these shoes made sense. You better laugh, that hurt. This is my actual basement. How do you like this background? This is like killer special effects, isn't it? I'm like industrial light and magic over here. But I like it. It doesn't show off all the cords and stuff on the wall and all that stuff. I'm an Uber driver. So I drive around, Uber, Lyft, whatever, and I drive around an awful lot of drunk people. And I thought that was going to be horrible because, of course, I'm driving, I'm sober. And, that dynamic of being sober and with a bunch of very drunk people, I thought it would be, kind of horrible. But it turns out I like drunk people. They're They're out, they're having a good time. They're enjoying life. They're singing and laughing. And for a few minutes while they're in my car, I can pretend I'm one of them. But if I meet somebody at a grocery store and tell them I'm a stand-up comedian, they'll be like, "Oh, that's very interesting." If you tell somebody, a drunk person in the back of your car, that you're a stand-up comedian, they're like, "Oh my God, tell me something funny." And you're like, I'm gonna do some bits here. I'm gonna be funny. And they're like, "Tell me a knock knock joke." And then you're like, "God damn it." Fine. I will tell you a knock knock joke, but it's gonna be my knock knock joke. Here comes the only knock knock joke I ever wrote. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Kook.
Cuckoo.
Is it 1 o'clock already? Yeah, that joke sucks. But you tell the drunk person in your car and they're like, "Oh my God, you're so funny." And then I climb in the back and we all fuck. Which works out really well for me because if we get bodily fluids on the upholstery, I get charged them $150 cleaning fee. I had 3 women bar hopping in the car one time. And one of them was telling the other two, every guy who tries to talk to me is like really gross. I'm 45. And then she looks at me, and keep in mind, I'm 62 years old. I will be next week. And she looks at me and she says, "Well, I can see you nicely. You're trying to talk to me. You're not 45, are you?" And I said, "No, ma'am, I'm not 45. And then I climbed in the back and we all fucked. I had a guy one time in my car. He was he had a guitar and a coat that smelled like all the weed that ever existed. And we were talking about performing. We're both performers, so we were talking about performing, and the subject gets around to audiences and applause. And he says this horrible, stupid, gross joke. He says, "I would rather have somebody clap for me than give me the clap. Ah." And I'm like, "Oh, that's really gross. That's horrible." But then just a beat later, just a second later, and a little more quietly, he goes, "Because that shit hurts, man." I didn't climb in the back and fuck that guy. Let's see. I think I want to go with this. I am 62 years old, or about to be. I don't feel especially old. I keep thinking about getting a tattoo because everybody's argument against it is, how's that going to look when you're 60? And mine's going to be fine. I was at the doctor's office recently, and I couldn't help but notice this beautiful painting on the waiting room wall. It was a picture of an operating room. And in this operating room, they were doing a procedure, and standing right next to the surgeon, his hand on the surgeon's hand, guiding him through the operation, was Jesus. And I got to admit, it made me feel good. It would have made me feel better if he was wearing a mask and gloves. I mean, come on, Jesus, it's an operating room. I'm not especially religious. I had a very religious boss that was always making us pray at work. We were always like saying grace and saying invocation, whatever. And they stopped asking me to pray. And I think it was because the last time they did, I said, "Crom, I have never prayed to you before. I haven't the tongue for it. Valor pleases you, Crom, so grant me revenge." And if you do not listen, then to hell with you. Amen. Yeah, that boss was also involved in a group called Promise Keepers. Anybody familiar with it? Nobody? Okay. I don't even know if they exist anymore, but they were a faith-based organization that were ostensibly about being better husbands and fathers. And, I was both of those things. So I was like, tell me tell me what's important to you. And he goes, well, we believe that fathers should spend time with their children. And I'm like, doesn't everybody believe that? I mean, it's not exactly a groundbreaking idea there, but keep them coming. He goes, well, we believe that husbands shouldn't cheat on their wives. And I'm like, there again, doesn't seem like anything special, but keep them coming. Like, we believe that men shouldn't beat women and children. I'm like, do we actually need to be in a club for this? And the other shoe dropped for me when he said, and because we're going to do all these things, women need to understand that we are the biblical leaders of the family. And I'm like, hang on. We're going to do all these things we should have been doing anyway, but only if we get to be in charge. That's a protection racket. It's like, hey, nice marriage you got here. It would be a shame if something happened to it. It's like the meanest Rickroll ever, never going to give you up, never going to let you down, never going to run around and hurt you as long as you do exactly what I tell you to do. Not especially religious. I've got a Bible in the house. I opened it up just randomly and opened to Exodus, that first meeting between God and Moses in Exodus. And God appears to Moses as a burning bush, and he says those famous words. He says, I am that I am. I'm like, wait, that sounds familiar. I am that I am. Where have I heard that before? I am that I am, and that's all that I am. Now, admit it, every one of you would love to worship at the Church of Popeye. Could you imagine the whole congregation standing there, hymnals open, trying to sing along with ska, 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 ska. That call and return, instead of being amen, it would be whoa. There'd be scandal in that church. Most of it would revolve around those 4 little boys who look exactly like Popeye, but they call him Uncle Popeye. They live with olive oil, and when Popeye visits, they call him Uncle Popeye. Yeah, right. And so that kind of indicates that at some point there was a night with Popeye and olive oil. And I just, it seems kind of gross to me, but it seems like it would be, olive oil, it feels so good. And she's like, ooh. Oh, and before long, she's telling me can't keep it up. And then he's like, oh, you're right. I better eat some spinach. Bum, 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 bum. And then suddenly he's like, oh. I feel like I've laid myself bare to you people. I wasn't always an Uber driver who did comedy at night. Some 40 years ago, I was a pizza cook who did comedy at night. And I worked in a place run by a really good friend of mine, an Armenian fellow who spoke English as maybe a 7th language, and he would say shit to you, like, he just couldn't cuss right in English. And he'd say things like, he'd come around the corner and see you messing up, and he'd say, "Here it is, you're supposed to be making the work to me, but instead you are playing to each other's asses." We kind of were. But one time, Aram had this special pencil he didn't want any of us messing with. So he takes the pencil and he attaches it to a bulletin board and with a piece of string. And then he actually puts a note, attaches a tiny note to the pencil itself that said, "Leave it alone." But it said that in his own Aram vernacular because the note read, "This is Aram, do not fuck." Every one of us fucked that pencil. One of the toughest nights there turned out to be my favorite. We were really short-handed. We were all working double shifts. It's raining outside. We don't have a dishwasher, so we're all doing some dishes. And I've got, an apron with this big wet spot where I'm doing all the dishes. And at the very end of the night, I'm taking the garbage out. And as I'm bringing the cans back in, there was a couple that they're walking around the back to their car. And the guy looks at the woman and says, "Hey, look, he pissed himself," and pointing at my apron said, "He pissed himself." And I said, "That's right, and I made your pizza." I slept well that night. I'm a father. I got 2 adult children. I knew I was going to be like a complete sucker as a parent, just completely crazy about my kids. And I knew it one day when I was in the gym at where I live in Asheville, North Carolina. The woman on the stair climber in front of me, she's obviously a UNC Asheville student because she's got that UNCA logo, that blue paw print on those short shorts. And I'm watching that image go up and down, and I'm looking, and all I can think is, a clue. Okay, I'm about to wrap it up here in a minute, but a couple of things real quick. I quit doing comedy for about 25 years. And when I wasn't doing comedy, I didn't get out to bars and clubs and places like that much. And you wouldn't believe how they change in 25 years. I mean, right off the bat, men hug each other in bars now. And I didn't get the man hug at first. I got it now. It's a quick, in and out and it's over. And I was doing it wrong. I was like, I have missed you so much. Oh my God, you smell good. The other thing I noticed is that I kept seeing people do this gesture. And I was like, what is that? And finally, somebody actually said the word, raise the roof. And I was like, wait, this is supposed to be a human being raising a roof? You are some lazy actors. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you raising the roof. I need somebody to yell action.
Action.
Save yourselves! I can't hold it much longer. They're just quietly watching on their screens. This bit doesn't work well if you're not in the same room with people. Thank you very much. You guys have been wonderful. Let's bring it back to your host, George.
Give it up for Art. Thanks, Art. Yeah, that bit probably is going to work much better with people in the room. Well, I'm sorry our audience was a little late tonight. Apologize for that.
I apologize to both of y'all. I fear I may have walked some audience members because they were there when I started.
I know, I
When I left,
got booted out. They didn't leave by choice. So,
they got booted.
yeah, their Zoom kicked them out. They didn't come back in.
Oh, okay. All right.
It wasn't you.
All right.
And by the way, I thought you had a terrific set. I enjoyed that. I enjoy that stuff.
Well, thank you. I thought I had walked audience members and I was like, well, but you know, having a bad set is one thing. Walking audience members is kind of like you let the comic that's going up after you down, and you let down the producer that puts you on the show, and you let down, if it's in person, all the staff at the bar or comedy club. So that always worry when it happens.
I had a mic I did once, and as I'm walking up, 4 of the 6 people in the audience got up and left.
Yeah.
But about a minute in, 8 people came in from the bar, so it worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
I wish I could tell you I've never walked the room.
Still very much streaming.